stupid. Intelligent people are curious and they ask questions. And, when they talk about this map of consciousness levels, they have this numbering system on the side where they go from low vibration, 20 being shame, through guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, up to courage, neutrality. And we're going to highlight a bunch of these today. Willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. And as we all know, it's really unreasonable to think that you're going to live like the Buddha every day and be in this state of enlightenment and even really peace, transcendence, etc. But we can definitely find a way to get our baseline to be more neutral or above, and to resonate more and more frequently on these higher levels of the 200 or above. And we're going to talk about this too, where it says here that these lower vibrations are destructive energies, and then the others are creative energies. And let me see here. Just wondering if there's a way for me to see also if anybody else is like popping in. I'm going to do a split screen share here because we really don't need to take up the whole space, but okay. Let's see. Add Brooke. There she is. Yay, Brooke. Hello, Brooke. Welcome, Brooke. Okay. Okay, so I want to go through these one by one, and we're going to talk about these destructive energies first. One thing I've seen in my coaching practice is many people carry shame about things they've done or haven't done, mostly about what they've done that they feel regret for, that they feel is not in alignment with their values. So let's say you had a period in your life where you were lying or cheating, and you look and you go, okay, I feel ashamed about that. Well, you can't feel shame unless the behaviors that you were doing are contradicting or going against your values. Same and similar with guilt. Guilt and shame are very similar in that way, and that typically sociopaths don't feel guilty about their behaviors. So if you're struggling with guilt or shame, and that is your dominant frequency, or that frequency, meaning that emotional frequency, it's an energy. If you're experiencing that on a regular basis, I highly recommend that you do your best work to clear that, because it counters all these higher frequencies. And so in an overall sense, what you're looking for is, how often can I be in these higher frequencies? You might have 10 minutes a day where you're feeling joy, you're riding your bike, or you're working out, or you're talking to your child, and you're living in this moment of the experience creating for you or allowing you to be in a frequency of love, peace, or joy. But if the lion's share of your awake time, so let's say if you're awake for 18 hours a day and you get 6 hours of sleep a night, you take the number of hours per day that you're awake, and how many of those hours are you in these higher frequencies, and how many are you in the lower frequencies? And guys, this isn't about blame, and this certainly isn't about making people feel guilty or bad or ashamed because you're in these lower frequencies. This is an exploration But if you're struggling with shame or guilt, I want you to know this core concept. It is because you have values. Typically, you have integrity and you've done something in the past that you regret or that clashes with your values, you wish you hadn't done, or you wish you had done. And the point of those emotions is not for you to hold on to them forever. They are what I call corrective emotions. So if you've ever gone bowling as a kid, or you've seen children bowling, and they've got those bumpers that go down the alley of the bowling alley of your alley, and they keep the bowling ball in the lane, right? So guilt and shame are designed to keep you in your lane, whatever your lane is. So in order to remove the lower frequencies of shame, you have to ask yourself, what did I do? What's the story? And this will be a core thread throughout this whole talk tonight, is the stories that are generating that energy and that frequency. So if I have a story, and the story is that, I wish I had spent more time with my father before he passed away. And so that's my story. My story makes me feel guilty. Okay. So my values are family. Family's important to me. Being kind to loved ones, being there for loved ones when they're in need. Those are my values. So my values make me tell a story that I wish I had spent more time with my father. That makes me feel guilty. Guilt creates an energy inside of me. And you see how that works, right? Well, again, and I'm going to say this a few times to emphasize it, because I have met people who are 10 years, 20 years past an event or a series of events that occurred, and they are still mentally and emotionally flogging themselves on the back for something, many things that weren't completely in their control, where they were doing the best that they could under the circumstances. And I see how the guilt and the shame has destroyed their motivation. It has destroyed their self-worth, and it de-energizes them every day. So if you're rehashing old stories from the past of guilt and shame again and again, beating yourself up, reminding yourself of where you fell short or where you went wrong, or someone else in your life is reminding you of where you fell short and went wrong, I would highly encourage you to consider whether you want that person in your life anymore. Because by them beating you up over and over again about something from the past, they're not seeing you for who you are. They're not seeing you for someone who wants to grow and evolve. And 100%, I know if you're in this group, you fall into that category. You want to learn and grow. So you should not be held to the fire over and over and over again for something from the past. I'll give you an example. I had a guy that I'm friends with, and he worked on the stock exchange in New York, and he got into financial consulting, and he got burned out, and he wanted to go into construction. He was really good at it. He had his own construction company, and his wife just was very risk averse. She couldn't handle the ups and downs of her husband being an entrepreneur, owning his own business. He had years when he was doing well. They owned a multi-million-dollar home in upstate New York with a pool the size of, your community center pool. I mean, he did very well for himself. But in those times when things were not so great, she would just rail on him, criticize him. Ultimately, he ended up selling the business and walking away from it because there were times when it wasn't profitable and he was just getting all this pressure. So to this day, that was 20 years ago, he beats himself up every day for walking away from it. He says, I should have stayed with it. I should have just ignored my wife's stresses or addressed them differently. and I shouldn't have done that, and I'd be financially in a much better place right now. So guys, imagine somebody, and if you look at that, you know, those were life lessons. It's not like he perpetrated some evil against someone else. You know, he was just doing the best that he could, and things didn't work out so well, right? So if you're feeling guilty about something, identify what are the values that clashed against that. You know, what are my values? Let's say it's honesty or fidelity or you know, family, etc. Identify what the values are, and then basically get the lesson and get out. And that means understand what the lesson is from those stories that keep generating guilt and shame for you, and get out, meaning become aware of what the beliefs were that you took on that may be limiting you, and then put those stories on the shelf. That's the thing I have against a lot of traditional therapy is you'll talk about these things over and over and over again, and not just rehashes.
I'm gonna do a face mask and I'm gonna sit and watch.
Okay, what about the birds?
Just mute her real quick. Instead of rehashing those things. Okay, so now let's go on to apathy. Okay, is apathy better? They put it higher on the frequency scale. But I guess you could say in some instances, apathy to me would be better than emotional pain. It's interesting they have it below grief, because sometimes I think that apathy, you know, I would argue whether where apathy and grief fall on there, because sometimes we have compassion fatigue. We can feel so bad for other people, and we get to a place where we just, our bucket is empty. We're exhausted from caring too much. So you can see why apathy might be better than that. I'm not really personally resonating with these things on the side where it says like shame is miserable, humiliation, guilt is victimhood and blame. But we'll go on. Grief. Yeah, grief is definitely, you know, as we all know, it's something you have to go through. It's loss. It's losing a loved one. It's losing a job, retiring from a job, having to move away from an area that you love, having sadness, regret, depression. In many of those cases, if your grief again is perpetuating on and on and on, you know, there is that 5-step grief process that people go through when they lose a loved one. And I'm not really talking about that because I think that is a, you know, it's a psychological process that everyone does go through, and it's, you know, it's supposedly healthy. But where I've seen it go wrong and really derail people is when it goes on for years. And in those cases, what you're talking about is if your grief about something goes on for years, then there's a clash between what's happening now, whether the what is I don't have that person in my life anymore, whether they died or whether they divorced or whether they left, or I don't have that job anymore. Like this guy, I think he was also grieving that he didn't have this career. He gave up that career. So whatever it is that you're missing, you have to, again, if you're going to raise your vibration, is look at the story. What is the story I'm telling myself that is holding me in grief? And how's that story working for me? You know, and how can I make peace with this so that I can live more in the moment, that I can be more appreciative of what I have now? And that's one of the big challenges. But again, it ties back to the stories. The stories create the emotion. The emotions create the energy, which is the vibration. So when they're talking about, oh, you just got to raise your vibration to love, you know, I'm always like, well, the whole point of this talk today is that's not really how it works. How it really works is you've got to look at the emotion that's creating the energy, and then what's the stories or beliefs behind that. And can I change those stories? Am I willing to change those stories? Or how can I change those stories so I am not perpetuating an unproductive emotion that may be holding me back from what I really want in life? Desire. So desire, longing. How often have you been in a place mentally where you've been longing for, missing something that you had in life that you don't have anymore? So it could be a person. Again, it could be a childhood friend. It could be a way of life. It could be your just the way things used to be. So desire, in that regard, that's where I see desire really being a lower frequency for people, versus what we'll talk about is like passionate intention. So desire to me would be a sadness, longing, a lack energy is what I believe that they really mean when they're talking about desire here. And so let's break this one down. If you are in a habit of feeling lack, feeling desire for something and not having that desire satisfied, it means that in your mind, you're spending more of your mental time in the story of the lack, of the not having, of the missing the thing, missing the person. You're spending a lot of your time in the wanting versus the having. And that will just perpetuate itself. Guilt, all these emotions, they perpetuate themselves, meaning you can't get to a feeling of fulfillment from a feeling of not feeling fulfilled. So it's for example, money. If I keep wanting money, needing money, focusing on not having enough money, then that's just going to manifest more experiences where I don't have enough money. If you stare in the mirror at your inadequacies, you're looking at, okay, yeah, I've got these great muscles, I got I got biceps, I got, nice legs, etc. But man, I just obsess on the little bit of flab on my stomach or something, right? Well, guess what's going to grow? The part that you're wanting to get rid of, because from my background with hypnosis and the subconscious mind and coaching and everything I've been doing for 30 years, what you focus on grows. So if you're desiring something, you want to be very clear that it's something you want, that it's something you feel you can have, and that you deserve it. And if not, you're going to be perpetuating a malaise, a bad feeling, a negativity associated with the kind of desire they're talking about here that creates a lower vibration. So let's talk about anger. All right. So anger is typically a cover-up emotion, masking a more vulnerable emotion. So anger is typically masking fear, sadness, or powerlessness. So if you're in a situation where you find yourself perpetually letting things anger you, when you feel angry, before you jump to strike, before you jump to lash out, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what is this anger masking? Am I sad about something related to why I'm angry? Am I afraid or anxious related to some reason I'm angry? Or am I feeling powerless in some situation? So I give the simple example of the child who runs out into the street and the mother yells at the child, Johnny, come back, don't run in the street. She's yelling at him, right? She's afraid. She's afraid he's going to get hit or hurt or killed, right? There's just as many examples of someone masking sadness. Let's say you're dating someone and they forget your birthday and you get angry. Well, you might be masking sadness that the story you're telling yourself is that they forgot your birthday and that you don't mean that much to them. Okay. So again, with any emotion on these lower ones, you're talking about a story, a narrative, beliefs that are generating them and perpetuating you in these emotions. So to get out of that, you go back to what's the story I'm telling myself that's creating this lower vibration emotion? Is that story true? Is that the only way to look at this story? How's that story working for you, Beck? Is what I'll say to myself, in a joking way. How's that story working for you? And if I'm in one of these lower vibrations, I'll be like, this story is not working for me. WTF. Okay, well, what story can I tell myself instead that would allow me to break the cycle of continuing to generate these emotions that are contributing to me being lower vibration more and more throughout the day? So again, you can't just say, oh, I'm feeling afraid, I'm going to rise to the frequency of love, or I'm going to rise to the frequency of joy. Or you might create some diversion for yourself, like I said earlier. But ultimately, if you want to empower yourself and live at these higher frequencies more consistently and more throughout your day, you've got to do a systematic inventory of the emotions and the stories behind the emotions, and then the beliefs that are embedded in the story. So again, I give that example of, let's say it's your birthday and a close friend of yours doesn't reach out to wish you happy birthday and you feel angry. What's the anger? The anger is covering up sadness. Okay. So sadness just doesn't happen for no reason. Anger just doesn't happen for no reason. Some people could care less if anyone remembers their birthday. Some people, I'm glad they don't want to remember their birthday themselves, right? So it's all your perspective. It's all dials down to your story, the stories that you tell yourself about yourself and the world at large, your world beliefs, your beliefs about yourself, your beliefs about others. So if that person says, well, oh, this person didn't reach out to me and wish me happy birthday, they don't care about me. That's the belief. That's the false truth. So in those types of situations, you can go to someone and say, hey, when I didn't hear from you may I share something with you? Sure. Well, when I didn't hear from you on my birthday, I felt sad. And my story is that you don't think I'm important, or you don't love me. Okay. So even in your communication styles, I'm telling you guys, this is a flippin' game changer. If you can communicate in this way with people, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling guilty because let's say, your son asks you to go to his baseball game and you can't, you have to work and you're feeling guilty. Why are you feeling guilty? Well, you have a value for family and you love your son. So you go to your son and you say, son, hey, I want to share something with you. I'm feeling really guilty because I love you and you're important to me. And what's important to you is important to me. And I'm feeling some struggle because I had to work today. And my story is, that you might be upset with me or angry with me that I couldn't go. So it is such a powerful thing to lead with my story is, or because what you're saying with that is it's not the truth. It's your version of the truth, or it's your interpretation of what's going on. And then it gives people freedom to have a very different interaction with you than saying, oh, you forgot my birthday, and that means you don't care about me. If that's true or not true, right? Okay. So the other thing I want to say about these emotions before I go on, for those of you who are highly sensitive people, go back to my podcast on the highly sensitive people. I did 2 weeks in a row with that because it's really powerful. If you're a deep thinker, many of you in this group are. If you're prone towards anxiety, which means you have, depth of processing, you maybe overthink, you're very empathetic to other people. There can be another thing at play here with these lower vibrations, and that may be that they are not your emotions. So have you ever walked into a room, a social situation, a meeting, your house where other people live, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, you're feeling sad, you're feeling tired, you're feeling cranky. And this was a huge game changer for me when I realized that oftentimes the emotions that I was feeling were not even my own. So there's a little curveball to throw at you guys for those of you who are the type of people you feel other people's energy. If you're going along with your day and you're feeling good and just curveball out of the blue, all of a sudden you're feeling grief, first thing you should ask yourself, is this mine or is this someone else's? And just pause on that, because the answer is going to come from your gut. It's going to come from a knowing. And how your subconscious mind will answer you is you'll be shown a scene from earlier in the day or earlier in the week, or you'll go back to a snippet of conversation. So I remember leaving my office one day, driving home from work, and all of a sudden I just got this wave of anger, and I'm like, yeah, what? And I'm trying to pin it on what happened in my day. I'm just seeing clients, nothing out of the ordinary happened, nothing bad. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why am I so pissed off? And okay, is this mine? And I just paused on that question, got my car, started driving home. And about a minute later, it was like, oh, that was my client today. That was client number 3. Yeah, he was really angry. And I'm an empath. I'm highly sensitive. I have come leaps and bounds in learning how to stay healthily detached in order to give my best offering to other people. And I've talked about this in other podcasts with you guys. It is not your best offering oftentimes to feel what other people are feeling. You want to be the light. You transmit the more positive vibration. That's another thing. When you're an empath, you're not helping other people. I talked about this last week with the hero and the rescuer in that podcast. You're not helping people by going into sadness with them, going into pity and feeling sorry for them. Okay, so if all of a sudden you're feeling anger, you're feeling anxious, that's another huge one. Anxiety or fear. Those would be those are the top 3 emotions where you might be picking up on somebody else's vibe. So I remember when I was first married, I came home one night, 5:30. My husband at the time walks in. Hey, how's your day? It's good, whatever. And in a couple hours later, I'm just like, God, I feel so like just blah right now. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. What the hell is wrong with me? I'm literally like asking myself, where did this come from? Because I was fine. Like nothing had happened. No events had occurred. I hadn't been stewing on anything. And then another hour goes by and my husband says, I had the worst day today. And I'm like, oh, really? He goes, yeah, I had this huge fight with my boss. We really got into it. I got really angry. I wanted to quit. And I was like, oh, okay, this isn't me. This isn't me. And actually it was a relief. And luckily I didn't need to go into fixer mode. So watch my podcast for last week, why you shouldn't go into fixer mode. But that's the freedom, is when you realize you picked up on someone else's emotion, you can release it immediately, because truthfully, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to rescue the person. You reverse the polarity, you raise your vibration, you go to peace, love, joy, and you emanate that and let them rise to your vibration. You don't need to go into their vibration to help them, fix them, love them, or anything. Okay, so pride. Guys, I'm just going to skip over that one tonight because I'm not really, I have a different perspective on, I don't know, pride. I guess I see what they're talking about. Pride being like you have a frequency of depending on external circumstances. But I look at every single one of these emotions that you're seeing down here below as being generated by external circumstances, whether it's a circumstance from the past, whether it's your job situation, whether it's your relationship situation. That pretty much sums it up. Your living situation, that if any of those external situations, not just pride, but any of those are creating these lower vibrations, then the work to be done is, like I said, identify the story, generating the feeling, become aware of the beliefs. And then at a core level, on your core concept of yourself and how you operate in the world, you want to develop healthy detachment. That means my happiness and my unhappiness is not dependent on what other people do. My happiness and unhappiness are self-generated. It's a mechanism from within. And that means that I can be disappointed. Maybe I want to get together with my friend and they cancel at the last minute. Yeah, sure, I can be disappointed. But the idea is, with all of these emotions, we are human, we flow, energy is in constant flux. But where you're talking about these things going wrong is this saying, don't let crows nest in your tree, and crows get the bad rap with that. But any of these emotions, it's only when you're in them constantly, when you let those birds of those lower vibration emotions build a nest in your mind, that's where it goes wrong. Yes, you may have a moment of fear, a moment of grief, a moment of guilt to guide you where you're out of sync with your values. But where it goes wrong is when you're just ruminating in it, rehashing the past, or worried about the future, or telling a narrative, a story about someone or something, what they're doing or not doing that is making you unhappy. And that's powerlessness. And if you want to return to sovereignty, so sovereignty is I own my peace, I own my happiness, independent of what anyone else does or doesn't do, then you can live more and more with willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace. And so neutrality is, if you want to shoot for this, one of my clients, he's a former hockey player, and we were talking about what I call living with rebellious positivity. And he says relentless positivity, right? So that means, how can I find a way to look at the situation and find the positive, find the silver lining, make lemonade out of lemons? But he said his goal every day is to be neutral or above the line. And I absolutely love that, because sometimes we can't be in those frequencies of joy, love, etc., depending on if, we're working on our stories. But neutral is actually a really beautiful place to be, and it shouldn't be underrated, because neutral is this, like, really almost like it's Buddha. It's this space of not judging. You're not judging things as good so that I'm triggering love and joy, and I'm not labeling them as bad. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but your intuition will skyrocket. Your instinct about decision making and how to navigate your life forward in the most efficient way, how to pick up on and notice synchronicities skyrockets when you can be in neutrality. And that means a situation happens. I don't let it trigger these lower vibrations. And I don't have to label it as great or good or wonderful. You can, and you can be grateful. But even just practicing, observing without judging, going through, it's like I'm driving somewhere and I get stuck in traffic. Okay, it's not bad. The traffic eases up, starts moving. It's not, oh, good, we're moving again. The more and more you can just be observing of what is and not labeling it as good or bad. Again, the more clear you're going to be on so many things, because that means that you're not adding a narrative to it. A beautiful woman walks down the street. Beautiful, I said. That's a judgment. In a red dress. And she looks happy. That's my story. Versus neutral would be, I see a woman, she has blonde hair, she's wearing a red dress and she's walking down the street. That's neutral. There's no opinion about it. There's no adjectives added to it. And I can just observe without adding a story to it. And I really highly recommend that you make that one day a week, you make that a mindfulness practice. Don't force yourself to try to go to these higher vibrations. Perhaps for you, if you've been stuck in a pattern of these lower vibrations, them being more of the dominant frequencies for you, many of you understand this, you come by it honestly. And what I mean by that, it's ancestral behaviors that really drive a lot of these lower frequencies. It can be your own experiences as well, surely. You've had experiences that you've labeled as bad. You've had experiences you label as negative. You've had experiences that you label as setbacks. You have experiences that you label as counterproductive or you falling short of your goals. Opinion, 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 opinion. Okay, you step on the scale today. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just that number. Do that. Okay. You look at what you ate today. You have a goal for your calories or your nutrition, or you have a goal for working out today, and you didn't get to do it because your meetings ran late. Okay, it's not good. It's not bad. It is what it is, right? And the more and more you can be in this place of neutrality with things, you liberate yourself to not allow situations that are out of your control to just put you on this roller coaster of moods. You take back your power and you free yourself and liberate yourself. You step more and more into your sovereignty by being able to look at things and say, they're not good, they're not bad, it is what it is. And then from there, the more and more you do that, automatically, the more and more you're going to be able to get to these higher levels of peace, joy, love, okay? Because think about this. You're working all day, you're frustrated because, your boss doesn't give you enough hours, or your boss doesn't pay you enough, or you're a coach, you work for yourself and you're pissed off at yourself because you don't have as many clients, or your business isn't where you want it to be yet, all those lower frequencies. And then you say, okay, I'm going to put all that aside and I'm going to go to the beach and watch the sunset with my person or by myself. Now, it's so much harder to go from 100 to 540 in a drive to the beach, right? It's It's almost impossible. That's why when people go on vacations, oftentimes they'll say, it took me 2 or 3 days to just decompress. Do you know what they're talking about with that? It took them 2 or 3 days to raise out of these lower frequencies, to put those stories aside and not let those stories lower their vibration. So they're leaving a lot of baggage, hopefully, behind when you go on vacation. But if you make this a daily mindfulness practice in every day, okay, I'm not going to label that as good or bad. You know, maybe, and it's might not even be about yourself. Let's say, you know, my son recently broke up with his girlfriend, and he's, you know, he's 22. He's not really going to tell his mom all the details of that. But, you know, when I saw them together, they seemed really happy. And, you know, so I had to check myself, because I was like, you know, I started with the story of, oh, I really like that girl. She was sweet. They seem really happy together, blah, 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 blah. They broke up. Okay, neutral. I don't have to add a story to it. It's not good. It's not bad. It is what it is. Funny enough, my son, when he was little, he was playing with this kid who moved to the neighborhood, and they played together for, I don't know, a month. And then all of a sudden they weren't playing together anymore. And I said, oh, you're not playing together anymore. He goes, yeah, Mom, sometimes a spark doesn't turn into a flame. And I'm like, little Buddha. Okay. So find a way to be neutral, which means find a way to stop adding the good and the bad story to everything. This duality world that we live in, when they talk about transcending to the, you know, beyond the third dimension to the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, a big piece of that is this neutrality. In one of my dreams, one of my meditations, when I was wanting to like meet guides and angels, one of the ones I met, she wasn't lovey-dovey. She wasn't like all, you know, divine love and light. She was just very neutral, you know? And so that neutrality, if you can reach for that every day, then when you are in a situation where you go to the beach, or you're playing your favorite music, or you're doing something you absolutely love, playing golf, whatever it is, you're going to find that you can bounce to those higher frequencies so much quicker when you're not trying to get to them from these lower vibrations. So ask yourself in any situation, can I tell a different story, or what can I tell myself to be neutral, non-judgmental, to step out of labeling this situation as good or bad. And that's huge. That's a huge that's a huge ascension tool in my perspective. Acceptance goes right along with that. Okay, so situation happens, you can accept it. Again, when you have that neutrality, when you're like, okay, I'm not going to say this is good, I'm not going to say this is bad, it is what it is. And behind the scenes, what I like to believe personally is that everything is unfolding in my favor, everything is happening in my favor, my world is taking care of me. So the backdrop through which I can stay more neutral is that I've built into my mind, true or not true, but it works for me, a belief that everything's working out in my favor, even if I don't see the reason why something that's happening right now is going to favor my ultimate dreams and goals in the end. And so that could be like a relationship that doesn't work out, that I was thinking maybe was going to be that person for me, my partner or whatever. It could be a project, you know, something that I thought was going to happen and didn't transpire. So the more and more you can be in acceptance, it doesn't mean you're not going to get what you want. It just, for me, means that I'm understanding that this thing, situation, person, or event that I thought would be a stepping stone to what I want might not be, or might not be right now. Okay, so that's huge. It allows you to be more in these higher frequencies when you get out of your head with the story that I was expecting this thing to happen so I can reach this goal. Or I was expecting, intending that this person be in my life or whatever, so that I feel happy or love or whatever, right? So the more and more you go general, so to me, at that place of enlightenment at the top of the chart here, to me, that enlightenment is wearing life loosely, wearing situations loosely, knowing that I kind of see beyond the veil. I can rise, 10,000 feet in the air and see my life. And again, think about this, guys. How many times have you had something happen to you? And at the time, you were so like believing that that was the thing that was going to render you some joy, some abundance, some happiness, and then ultimately it didn't. Or let's say you're in a marriage and it's not working out, but you were together for how many years? Okay, that's fine. You can be neutral with it. You can understand that if you're trying to decide, should I stay in this relationship? Should I stay in this marriage? Should I leave? That's not asking you the right question. The question would be, what does my life look like when I am predominantly living in the experience of peace, love, and joy? Okay, so we go back to the stories, but we're going to flip it. So people, you can't just go around meditating joy, joy, joy. You can love, 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 peace, peace, peace. But in order to, on a practical level, be in those experiences more frequently. And if you're having a tough time, like you're like, one of my clients I'm coaching, he took a new job, and his intention, he really believed he manifested this new job. He really likes his employers. He likes the situation. But they're working him like so many hours a week that he's exhausted and he doesn't have time for his workouts. And he used to be a part of this group. So he's like you guys. He's very, very, has a high value for fitness and being on the tip of the spear and all of that. So when you're wanting more peace, joy, and love, ask yourself, what's the story when I think about what my life would be like if I could just jump out of bed every day and feel so excited about life? Is that person with me? And if they're not, that's okay. The shoulds, the guilts, the shame, all of that will pull you back into obligation with people. And sometimes we just grow apart. And asking yourself with your work, what would give me more fulfillment? And for many people, it's, financial freedom. Okay. So what does financial freedom, people go right to the how. A lot of times when they're trying to reach these higher frequencies, the left brain goes right to how can I make that happen? How can I have more financial freedom? How can I have love in a relationship? Or how can I have deep satisfaction or connection in a relationship? How? But I'll tell you, if your how is falling short, that means you've got to stop with the left brain trying to figure out and let your right brain go into the vision, the feeling of it, the wish fulfilled. And that implies predominantly you're going into what type of relationship would allow me to experience consistent peace, love, and joy. And then the how will come, how you'll meet that person or how to get out of that current relationship, etc. What kind of lifestyle would allow me to experience more peace, love, and joy. Give yourself permission to do what I call exploring timelines. So you don't have to commit to doing something, whether it's leave someone, leave a job, move somewhere else. Give yourself permission to pull down from the alternative space, from the multiverse, potential timelines. What would it look like for this? And then feel into that. Do I feel peace, love, and joy and excitement when I think about that life? Yes. Well, don't just change your life on a dime. Feel into it. Pull in that timeline 10 times. And if every time that feeling of peace, love, and joy just amplifies more and more, then say yes, and the universe will give you the how. It'll fill in the gaps. It'll figure out the steps for you. Okay. And that's where a lot of us get stuck, is we want to know how to decide that something is viable for us. Well, I'm not going to go for deciding, that I'm going to quit my job as a accountant and, go out on my own and find my own clients and do, financial coaching or whatever. Because the left brain goes, well, how are you going to make that happen? And you don't have the resources and blah, 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 blah. Well, let's just fixate on first whether that's really going to make you happy or you just think it's going to make you happy. And the only way you're going to know that is to try it on, like you're putting on a virtual reality mask on your face, pulling in that matrix, pulling in that timeline from the alternative space and move around in that world. Does that make sense? Move around in that experience and do it not one time, but 10 times. And if the feeling grows, yes. Or you know what? No. And I did this. I've told this story about how I wanted to go on the road with Hay House and write books and be a speaker, when my kids were like 9 and 10, and I put on that virtual reality headset in my mind and I went into the story and different vignettes and what it would be like. And then one day I was like, holy shit, I'm not home with my kids. And that's a very strong value for me is raising my kids and all that love. And that's irreplaceable. And for me, so I was like, I had so much peace when I finally hung up that dream and said, you know what, not right now, because it conflicts with my values. I ultimately wouldn't be happy being on the road all the time, but it was a fantasy. And sometimes we get hung up on the fantasy of things because we haven't allowed ourselves to fully explore that timeline to its fullest extent, to really know, gut check it, feel into it, explore that world, and know it's right for us. And then, then you can live from more peace, love, and joy when you are living your truth, living authentically. Many of you have served for years. I don't believe you have to keep serving. I know I'm going to argue with Jay on that one a little bit because he says you have to serve. Well, I've served for 30 years. And if something happened tomorrow and I wouldn't feel guilty about it. I might serve in a different way. I can just serve by walking around, giving people love wherever I go and smiles wherever I go. And that can be enough too. If I'm emanating peace, love, and joy in that moment and doing just that. And he probably wouldn't disagree with me on this, but that's truly how you serve, is by finding how you can live more and more in these higher frequencies and allow yourself the grace of doing that. Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. I'm going to stop the share. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that, but thank you guys for letting me share about this topic. And hopefully that kind of gives more of a depth or a different explanation for the experiences of the map of consciousness. If you guys are interested in private coaching with me, you can DM me in the group and ask me if I can help you with your topic. I also do business coaching for coaches. whether you're a health coach, life coach, personal development coach, relationship coach, all of that. I've been in business for 30 years and I help coaches get their practice and get their unique light out in the world. So if that's something I can help you with, let me know too. All right, guys. See you next week. I love to each of you. Bye.